Welcome, everybody, to another show of Paranormal Into the Night with me, your host, Dino Ewell. That's right, a show that 2 years ago started out as an Art Bell chat Facebook group and has turned into what it has become today, Paranormal Into the Night, which is very, very cool. And congratulations to Art Bell. Had a baby boy today. So very, very cool. What else can I tell you guys? I appreciate all of the support out there, okay? Because of the show growing and all this other stuff, it's just awesome. It's just awesome. You know what? I think let me just make sure everything's streaming live here, okay? Looks to be. And yeah, we are streaming live on Facebook every Saturday night at 11 p.m., okay? And streaming live on YouTube 11 p.m. every Saturday night. And what you can do is join the group, okay? Paranormal Into the Night. It's also up on iTunes, so you can search there, everywhere you get your podcasts and all that good stuff. I am just wondering here why... ignore me, you guys, a second here. Okay, here we go. Everything's going smooth. Because I stream to multiple platforms, I'm doing about 10 things at one time, okay? So everything is good to go. I got a great guest on tonight. You guys are going to enjoy this. Lots of good information, very important information, I think. And this guy is just doing a lot of hard work and deserves a lot of attention and what he's doing. And I'll let him get into it. He's Jeffrey Boyd Jr. You know what? I got to give some shout outs here. I'm sorry. Let me do this too. You could also find us every Saturday, every Wednesday, sorry, between... My mind is just discombobulated today, okay, you guys? You ever have one of those days where just so much is going on that there was a wedding today, the kids, everything, life in general. Anyways, Paranormal UK Radio Network airs our show, Paranormal Into the Night, between 8 and 10 every Wednesday Eastern Standard Time and Greenwich Mean Time. So there you go. With that said, let me throw a shout out to Ancient Aliens Worldwide Facebook group, okay? My friend Leonard over there, he has a show that he started up here big time, Orion Rising. Go like his page. It's got a great group. Richard Giordano's out there somewhere. He should be in chat somewhere, but he's got Paranormal Code. That's every Sunday night. What else can I say? I got a lot of people. I want to get to my guest, but you guys all know who you guys are who are supporting me, and I appreciate it very much. And let's just get to Jeffrey Boyd Jr. I will let him talk about what he does. He's the Independent Research Society. I believe he's the founder of it, right, Jeffrey?
Yes, I'm the founder.
He is the founder. Yes, I should have known that. It's a network of truth seekers and speakers, and I will let him get into that a little bit more, and we will go from there. Jeffrey Boyd Jr., how are you?
Man, I'm doing good, hanging in there. Yeah, this is like the last show of the little streak right here this week. It's been crazy.
Yeah, you've been very busy, as well as I have been, and I'm up to the last minute of the show. I'm like, that's why I'm just like, wait, where's my mind at? You ever get one of those days where you just can't keep things straight? But
today was one of them.
There you go. But I do appreciate.
Caffeine about an hour ago.
Oh really? Yeah. You know what? If I took and drank a cup of coffee right now, I don't know what would happen. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Ever since that dang mummy thing came out, man, I haven't been able to hardly sleep.
Oh, we'll be talking about that.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, that's the first thing we'll talk about after I let you talk about your Facebook group. Okay, let's talk about that first. The Independent Research Society. I think it's exclusive to certain people and stuff like that. I'll let you explain it a little bit more. Tell me how you started that up and what that is all about. And I know you got a book in the works too. And throw out your Patreon page. Let's get all that out at the very start here, and then we'll go into all of the great topics that we're going to talk about.
I just started the
Uh-oh, Jeffrey, can't hear you.
No.
There you go.
All right.
I don't know what happened. What happened there? Your
I
volume.
don't set my headphones. Can you hear me better?
There you go. Much better, Jeffrey.
All right. Yeah, I had on headphones. They seem to work good on some things and some they don't.
No.
Yeah, they're brand new ones, but that's live radio.
Yeah. No, all good. You sound good now.
Yeah, we started off. I mean, I had all these things. I started the same exact way you did, listening to Art Bell every night. My entire life, then George Noory, and then Ground Zero, and just all of them. I was like constant input. I think I always needed it, but eventually over time you hear an expert on like every single thing. But I was studying like morphic genetic resonance, like I don't know if you know who Rupert Sheldrake is, but then I started looking for more answers, like in archaeology, looking for references to technology or scientific references, and I started finding them too. But then I worked as I got trained and worked as a metallurgist, and I literally went and took a job just because of a lot of questions and a couple of theories I had on Ancient Aliens. You had a lot of the same questions repeat over and over again, and one of the questions I asked was the first thing is when I look at something with scientific method is just what is it, and then got a test done, and the chemical analysis came back that it was, almost 40% water. The Giza pyramids were, and you can look at the Sphinx and tell that it's weather eroded, and you can look at the pyramids and tell that they're not, and they're two different colors and everything. But I answered a phone call with one of my friends on Aquarian Radio, and back then I was in the Mars Research Society and the Lunar Anomaly Research Society. And I answered a couple questions on a radio, on a radio show, and after that it just took off. But I ended up having all this stuff, all this research that I had done, and they were across so many different subjects that I was like, what, I need to get all this stuff written down into one place. And so I put the Independent Research Society because it was all independent research. And then the group just started we got, some radio hosts and stuff that came later on, but it was like we started off with the experts in different fields. And so we got that good core of like the experts you need on everything you can think of, and then we started branching out from there into different countries, and now it's like 80 different countries around the world or something, and it's been crazy, and we only have like 1,800 members or something now, but that's doubled literally in the past couple of months.
Wow.
And so even people we were hearing back on Art Bell, like Walter Bosley and all them, they're part of the society too. And now we've got this network of like radio hosts, everywhere from Spain to, Indonesia. And I wrote a thing for Advanced Archaeology Review and Ancient Mysteries International about ancient metallurgy, because I was seeing that a lot of these things that they were calling, that they were saying were carved out. But basically I just applied what I saw at the pyramid, and I started looking at like Pumapunku and started looking at the other location and realizing that they weren't, the assumptions that all the ancients did everything the most impossible way that they possibly could find. But the truth, once I started looking at all the materials, I realized that they were doing metallurgy and they were mixing cement just like we do now, and started realizing that as I studied it, I realized the technology level of them got higher and higher and higher. And, I just wanted to like put the scientific method back into it because I love Ancient Aliens, but everybody became an Ancient Aliens theorist, and that started pouring over into the science of it, or actually taking the science out of it became a big theory contest. But then, as long as you stay within these established bounds, you can say just about whatever. But then I started finding the truth is like, it's not like Zahia Was said. We're not looking at a 6,500 BC, 8,000 year history or something with Egypt. We're looking at an age far, far back, and then a separation, and then the current age Egyptians. And then just like the metallurgy stuff that I looked at the other sites and applied it to, then I realized it was the same thing in South America. When they came down, when they moved, the Inca, the Toltec, the Aztecs, the Maya, when they moved to South America, because I went and traveled down there and saw the pyramids and all those things, and the tomb of the astronaut and the tombs of Palenque and all that, realized talking to these people that they'll all tell you that whenever they got there, these structures were already there. So you're looking at two different civilizations completely,
Right.
and not
Yeah.
right. And because archaeology keeps trying to make everything younger,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the data in Egypt is really skewed because Egyptians are famous for one thing more than anything, and that's for taking the credit of someone else, chiseling somebody's name out and putting their name in over and over, and you start getting a shorter and shorter history. And
No, I hear you.
After
I'm
that,
here, Jeffrey.
now I have the
I'm hearing.
access to
I'm hearing a little echo
remote
there.
experts.
So
Go ahead.
I'm hearing a little bit of echo there. I'm not sure what that was coming from. Just make
Let
sure
me
you
see.
make sure you got everything turned down.
As much as I've done that, I've got like a collection of different headphones. For some reason, some shows, like on Google Hangouts, different ones work different.
Yeah.
Let's see. How does this microphone sound?
Well, the microphone sounded good before. I mean, you were fine. It was just I was getting echo, and I wasn't sure what that was coming from.
Oh,
So you sound fine.
I have a thing going, so.
Okay. So basically, you got this independent research society together just to get as much information in the field as possible and get everybody together. And it's kind of started to grow and grow and grow and become this gigantic place where everybody can share their research, right? And which is an awesome thing, very cool thing.
Yeah.
And
just like when I went there, I also was learning, if certain areas where because I didn't go to school in archaeology. I went to school first in computer science and then went back in education. So I never went in archaeology and things like that, but I started learning from the people who did and got in then I was named to the ASEAN Advanced Archaeology Symposium as a speaker. When that came out, that floored me because I've never even been to a convention, so it's like everything's moving very quickly. And that was over in the Philippines. And, but, then I started getting to know some of the authors that I had read, and like some of my heroes like Klaus Donna and people like that. And, that's pretty encouraging when you're like having a down day and you get a message from Klaus Donna on the other side of the planet going, "Hey man, keep your head up, keep writing." And I'm like, right at the right time, a person that I was studying and reading his books just the year before, so it's been an awesome ride for sure, and got the Patreon page just up today, and just because, it's not about the making money part of it, but I'm trying to get the book out there so I can keep doing this, and also get the amount of research that I have built up now that are totally new discoveries, and started making some of my own, like, the Inside Point Doom. Now I've got imaging Inside Point Doom, and I've the computer science thing allowed me to do some things that other people couldn't, and that's where they didn't know how to. Most people don't realize that you can access most any telescope or satellite that's in space, or any piece of technology that's out there. We pretty much have just straight access to, like, not even a sign up or anything. Just click on it and do it. I mean, you can go on the Research Society wall and you'll see where it says space weather, and you can click on that, and you can connect to one of like 10,000 different satellites. So, but I started seeing anomalies because, before I told you I was in the Lunar Anomaly Research Society and the Mars Research Society, but then I started noticing what I was seeing through the telescopes was not the same thing that I was seeing on Google Earth. And then I started seeing that theme repeated over and over and over and over. And then I realized, like, the stuff, our entire history that we've learned in the education system, I mean, it's just completely broken down. And that's what I always say, that history was written by the victors of wars. but it'll be rewritten by us, the insurgents, and that's the only, I'm taking away all the lenses of agenda, because that's what everything has been adjusted for over time until you have this really messed up picture of history. And if you just wipe that all away and just start looking at the data and see what that tells you about history, it's a completely different story. And it's a much longer story. I say it's a telescoping history, because we're looking farther in space and we're looking further back in time,
Right.
out in space and in the dirt. And it's been crazy. And now I'm about to start looking. I've been looking at imaging in North and South America for other pyramids and stuff. Now we're starting to realize there's this system all across the earth. George Washington said the first time he went into the Ohio River Valley, where you're at, the rest of my family is, they
Yep.
in Ohio and Indiana, Arkansas, Missouri. He said, and remember, he had been to big cities. He had seen a lot of things before this point. So when America started expanding west, even of all the biggest structures, he had seen Birmingham, Palace and all these places in England. And he said that he thought it was barbaric what they were doing, because he said they were destroying the largest construction projects that he had ever seen. Now, that's a pretty big statement in itself, because we know what he had seen pretty much. He had been to Boston, he had been to all these places, and he said they were destroying the largest building projects, pyramids, mounds, and entire city-states. So there were still some populated and some not, most not populated. Anything they found not populated was just totally level, and that stuff is still sitting out there right under our feet. And that's what everybody needs to understand. You can walk right out your door and do archaeology and make real discoveries, because North America is almost untouched just because of the history we've been taught.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, and a lot of people probably didn't even know what they were looking at, when they found this kind of stuff, but yeah, you know what, I do got a list here, so we'll try to stay on topic with some of them and then just veer off as we go along, whether it's true, false, whether it's a hoax, whatever it be, okay, it's stuff that's in the news right now, and it's like something that I want to talk about, and I just want to get your opinions on this stuff. So, I mean, the first thing definitely is the Peruvian mummy that is everywhere, all over Facebook right now, and
everything.
Yeah, I got my own opinion, but I'd like to hear what you think about it.
Well, like everything I do, I put up a post. You saw it the other day whenever I said, people were asking me, and I'm like, I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I'm going back and I'm looking at the anatomy of the body, and simple things like counting the ribs, counting the carpals, metacarpals, phalanges, and then I started asking just simple questions. I've even talked to some investigators at Gaia, which is pretty cool, because now it's like they kind of they might ignore me right off the bat, but then later on they come back and want to talk to me, because I think they realize how many people are going to hear whatever is said, and I think that's pretty cool, but the first thing I asked was, are they being really open about it, as in people coming in and examining it? Because if you have a real discovery like that, you want people like Klaus Donna, that are world famous, the curator Austria, to come in and check it out and be open about the thing. But it just seemed really commercialized, like we're not going to give anybody any answers until we make some money on it type thing. And then, but I got them, they started answering some scientific questions I was asking, which are simple, because I know the way those things are tested. And I said, did they do a cranial volume test? Because when they do head binding, because they kept, the news is trying to connect it to that. Even in the Washington Post, it was right below the mummy. It has a picture of a diagram of how they did head binding, trying to connect the two. And there are elongated heads and giants that the Smithsonian people have been destroying for years. And that's one of the things Klaus Donner shows in his book, The Hidden History of Humanity. And you can find the PDF file of that book in the file section on the Independent Research Society wall. Anybody's welcome to go check it out. And but no matter how much you deform a skull, even if you were to get somebody's head to be 3 feet tall, the volume of the inside of where the brain sits never changes. Mm-hmm. It will always be exactly the same no matter how much you deform the skull. But they had no answer on the cranial volume test. And I said, well, I might actually be able to approximate that just from the little 3D scans. And I was like, and so I asked, okay, where was it found? Was it found by itself? Or who found it? And the answer was it was found in a complex of tombs. And so I asked the opposite question of what I wanted to know. I said, so it was found amongst other human specimens? And the answer was no comment. And that's an answer all in itself. And, but they're...
Well, can't they specifically...
they're not being open about it, really. And...
any talks on getting some DNA from this thing at all? I mean, any talk on getting some actual DNA samples from this thing? If it's,
They did. That's one of the things they claimed. They took brain tissue and they took other they said it still had its organs inside of it, and that they had samples sent off to 5 universities around the world. Mm-hmm. But then I couldn't find out what universities or what doctors doing anything. But when you look at any, just go look at any find of any mummy recently, in recent history, and you'll be able to instantly find out who did the test at what university. Even before they take the samples, they know where they're going to be sent off to. None of that information's there. There's a complete blank on all of the data that usually goes with it. And that's just something that you would want to get out there immediately, Mm-hmm. And so...
Well, yeah, I mean, I know DNA samples and stuff.
I don't care if it is an alien or not. The only thing I want to know is what the truth is, whether it is or not. And
that is the truth, though, isn't it? I mean, if it's an alien or a human, either or, that's the truth. If it's an alien, tell us it's the truth. Yeah. If it's a person, a human, tell us it's the truth. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of get what you're saying, but, I mean, your thoughts. I mean, do you really think it's an alien, or is it a...
that's what I said to the investigator that went down there that was doing the filming and all that. Just a lot of those answers aren't there, and it totally stands out. And then you see, I'm like, if it's going to be a hoax, at least let it be connected to the people who were involved in the Roswell slides things that obviously they either didn't take enough time to even look at the slides themselves before they sold $100,000 worth of tickets to view the things first, with Jaime Maussan and all them. And even the guy in the Gaia video who is speaking first about the specimen, he's from the University of Mexico, in Mexico City. That's where Jaime Maussan's from. That's his guy. And so you see him surrounded by his own guys, and the data's not there, and it's just... It's everything that would be involved in it if they were trying to hoax it, which it would be a very elaborate hoax to put together an entire body, so I think it would be more of changing a human or a mummy that they did find, but it looks like I thought that they had plastered it or something, but a lot of times the skin does, when it does get preserved good, it's when it dries out real fast and then sealed away. And so the white color is not totally out there, but if you look at most mummies, they're not pasty white. They're usually like a leather type color, and just the things that I see in all of the finds of the mummies that they find every month around the world, the same data is not there. And when you see people you've got a doctor from Sweden and you've got a guy from Germany or together, and they find this over there. Well, they put out that same data because they're going to check for those the initial things that you can look at on a skeleton or a mummy and tell whether it's human or not. And the data is not there. And that's one of those things that usually you see out there first before you ever see any videos of it. A lot of times you'll see one picture of when they excavating it or something, and then you'll see the data come behind it, and then later on you'll see videos and stuff. But
well, this is driving me
asking,
nuts.
this is all I'm going to post about.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Like if you look at all the gods in Peru and all through Peruvian culture, it shows the gods having these 3 fingers, but they don't have them all pointing the same way. It's this weird thing where they're kind of perpendicular. It looks like a T. But that's what it looks like in all this Peruvian art. And the Nazca line, where the Nazca lines have one of the Nazca lines looks like an alien. You know, the big eyes and the strange looking body. That's what one of the Nazca lines looks like.
Right.
And so that's what they're saying they found it at. So there's a lot of questions. There's not many answers out there. And, I'm just hoping that if it is a hoax, I'm just glad that it's the same people that made the mistake last time. And I'd like to believe people are genuinely good and they made a mistake on the Roswell slides and just didn't research it enough to know that was a picture of 2 people in a museum that had mummies, because they were trying to sell it as it was pictures of aliens or whatever. But
no, this is the thing, man.
We haven't
day and age,
those things are buried.
Yeah, I mean, but this whole Peruvian mummy thing has just got me. To me, everything tells you it's a hoax, but we've been kind of, programmed to think that everything's kind of a hoax nowadays, just for the fact of media in general. The news, the papers, all these sites, websites, and so it's hard to distinguish what's right or wrong, but when they come out this blunt with these pictures and the pictures are just unbelievable, but there's a lot of movies out there in Hollywood that are unbelievable too. So that's why I'm trying to find out, as usual, if there's DNA that they've taken from it, which is coming back. Inconclusive, though,
saying
right?
That, but there's no answers back from it yet, and I couldn't even find out where they sent them to. And that's usually very easy. They're usually very open with that, because if you're not totally upfront with everything, well, then the results don't mean anything.
Yep, exactly. And that's what drives me crazy, Jeffrey. I think
they would start with, if they were going to hoax it, they'd start with the images and work back to the mummy, But
yeah, that's what drives me nuts about all of this, though. I've said it time and time again that, if we need some kind of evidence, we can't just keep talking about what we think is going on and what things are. You know what I mean? We need some evidence to back it up. And everybody keeps coming out with their own ideas and saying, well, this is probably why that. But when I say, where's the evidence? Nobody's coming back and telling me anything. And I'm not being, downright skeptical, because I've got a very open mind. But I continuously ask these questions, and, everybody says, okay, here's the information, take my word on it. And dissect it yourself, which sometimes doesn't even help me out. Come on. It's just really driving me nuts, So we'll move on from the Peruvian mummy, because there's no evidence out there whatsoever yet on that, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, well, there are, and there are people out there, and it is about money, but it's also, for the same reason I want to open up an independent lab. That's what I want to use the money for, and that's why I'm writing the book, to grow it from a society to a foundation. Because a little bit of money going to independent researchers goes a long way, because they are looking for the truth, and they've been used to working with no help. And the ones who are funded, and you have these people who are well funded. But, if a lot of people start believing in it and it's a hoax, well, now it's easier to nail in that history that they've had that keeps their agenda in place, and it keeps people from asking questions and keeps people, it keeps people watching TV and thinking that politics is important and then this is important. And when they try to tell you what's important, it is not important what some basketball player is tweeting. It is not, but that's been put into everybody's head what's important, and you should be angry about this in politics, and you need to get out there and demonstrate, and the president and all this other stuff, and it's just there's a whole different world, and the duality of it has become separated, further and further. You've got people who cognitive dissonance, people just will get angry if you shake up their world. And then there's the other people who really want to learn the truth, whatever it is. And the truth is our existence and everything that I look at, from the sun to space from UFOs to all of it. From our history and archaeology, it is all an amazing, so much more amazing than anything, on TV. I've documented multiple different types of beings that I've seen around the sun repeatedly, in different types of life, and I see a lot more things that appear to me to be life than what Stanton Friedman says nuts and bolts crafts. And
well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the sun, because I know you go in discussion and have done a lot of research on the sun and a lot of images that you've gotten from what's Soho and some of the other.
Yes, HelioViewer, and so is the Soho satellite, and the other one is Satan, the Solar Axion telescopic antenna. And that's another one of those things that's available.
Can I just say that again? Can I just
HelioViewer.org, and it'll show you the sun right now.
Right. Can I just throw that out there? The Vatican's telescope, okay, is Satan, okay. Which,
that's ridiculous.
Yes, which stands for what does it stand for again? It's
Solar Axion telescopic antenna.
Yeah, there you go. So. And that's what drives me crazy sometimes, Jeffrey, is that all of these things that just connect, the dots connect and are very strange in the paranormal universe. It's just, and not even that, on the fringe universe, I'll say, because paranormal and fringe could be two different types of things. So, it's very odd. But, continue with the sun. I'm very interested in that.
Well, if one thing, go look at, and I was telling you how things connect, and if you just don't look at one thing, archaeologists, they try to look for archaeological information and data. Like everything written by the ancients was archaeological information, and then it doesn't make any sense. But if you read what actually is out there, and like what Thoth wrote about, if you read his writings, the Emerald Tablets and the Book of the Dead, it reads like a current day physics book. Like one thing that said, that physics tells us that there is a Rosen bridge or a wormhole at the center of the nucleus of an atom, but it would take, quote unquote, the power of a star to hold it open. And so I posted the Egyptian things along with pictures and videos that I have of the sun, where you see 5 or 6 things sitting in orbit around the sun as the sun rotates, like in geosynchronous orbit, so coming around at the same time. And right where they're orbiting, a sunspot appears right below them, and then one by one you see the objects go into the dark spot and then close off. Well, that's what ancient Egypt, not the current day Egypt, but the oldest text that we have.
Yeah, they talk about accessing the world.
They talk about it via stargates, and the world, you getting there through Sirius A and Sirius B, and that's what they told us. So over and over again, we're finding that the ancients were not just telling us fairy tales and myths and these things. They were telling us, repeatedly. On every continent, we're finding that what they were saying and what actually is the truth. So it seems like when I looked for that scientific data there, it was there. And it matches up with what you see out in space, and even the construct of reality and how it's built. And the things Thoth said, about, he always called it space-time, the fabric of space-time. As you move through space, you move through time. And now our physics is caught up to that. And you see, as our technology gets better, we understand archaeology better. And that's because, I mean, anybody who has a logical mind will understand the reason why is because we didn't understand what they were saying before because we weren't just technologically advanced enough to yet. So then you start getting a very different picture of what the ancients were. And you see places like Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and then you see the LiDAR scans. It's laser imaging from space, and now we can see 4 miles deep, 6 kilometers. Before, the best LiDAR was 15 meters, 15 M, and now we can see deep into the earth. And when you look underneath what has always just been this temple, and out in the jungle, when you look at it from a satellite and look under the ground, it looks like a massive motherboard, like of a computer. The temple sits in the middle, but then all around it, it's got these little swirls that look like microchips all the way around it that are underground. And then you start seeing that at other places, and but we don't even understand what it was. But the whole story of Angkor Wat was that he was taken up into space, and when he came back, he built a temple that looked exactly like the vehicle that took him. But now when you look at it from a satellite, you see what looks like high technology under the ground. And on the walls, the carvings, you see, just like in Vedic tales in India, you have humans observing and recording wars and conflicts and things between different races and different species. Like, you have these carvings of things you don't even recognize, and it looks like it's got its foot on a snake type creature, and it looks like humans telling the story of something they were seeing. But that's the Mahabharata and the Brahmanas, they're telling a story of this high technology war in India and Pakistan and Kashmir and that area. And a lot of things are just completely omitted from our educational system. Like Australia, you've got the oldest culture on the planet, which is the original people, the Aborigines, but you don't hear them in history anywhere. In the 60s, the late 60s, they still have them listed in the same category as kangaroos. But it's totally left out. Then in Indonesia, you see these pyramids and I've been to Mexico and seen lots of pyramids, and these things, the first time I saw it, there's no way I would have thought it was Aztec pyramid that I had not seen. And come to find out, it's on the other side of the planet. It's in Indonesia, and there's a whole country full of it, and Borobudur and all these places. And just like the pyramids, and then I find other researchers who have come to the same conclusion, then I'm happy about it because I came to the conclusion that it was a power plant.
Okay, I was going to say
electricity, and then I found out Michael Tellinger saying the same thing. It's very reassuring.
Yeah, I was going to say, we keep jumping all over the place. I know, because one thing kind of leads into the other.
Connects with the other, yeah.
Yeah, but let's stick with for now, because, well, technically with the sun I was going to ask, but I'll get that, I'll throw that question in there a little bit again. But since we're talking about the pyramids and stuff like that, discuss it in a little bit more detail on why you think they're power plants, and what is your thought on all of these pyramids being all across the entire globe, and what they were used for, why they're everywhere, and give me your thoughts on that.
I think one of the links that kind of was just like one of those epiphanies you have, and it was Tesla, and I started looking at all the things that he was studying, and looking at the designs of his towers that were going to use groundwater that's running, run through the ground, and a tower that's 75 feet tall and try to broadcast electricity. And then I was like, later on I realized I think he was trying to recreate what they were doing at the pyramids, because he's trying to use piezoelectricity And the same thing at the Bosnian pyramids, it causes that pulse. You leave the negative side up, you pull the positive ions down from the atmosphere, but you see the same little technical things no matter which country you're in. All these pyramids of this age, Indonesia, Mexico, Egypt, you see the same qualities in each one of them, like they're built on quartz. And there's things like the roof of the Queen's Chamber is covered, the ceiling is covered in salt, and it has a water line at the top of the ceiling. So I believe the Nile was running through the pyramids. And, if you put weight on top of a quartz rock, on a quartz crystal, that causes electricity. Now, when you run water across it, you multiply that effect. Now running the Nile, the second biggest river on the planet, through the pyramids, and you're producing massive electricity. But
well, how did they get the Nile to run through?
I did a project. I did a thing. It's called hydroelectrolysis, and it's where you use electricity. And I just put a nail and two corks, and then you put a positive wire on one and a negative wire on the other one, and put a test tube full of water on top of each nail. And when you hook it up, I use baking soda instead of salt. Salt actually works better. And what they were using was natron salt, I think. And that's sodium carbonate. I was using regular baking soda, Arm & Hammer. That's sodium bicarbonate.
Right.
But I did that test in 5th grade. Then I found out. I look at the pyramid and everything about it. You have vents. They call them, but they don't lead out anywhere. So that's like the test tube. But what's at the end of that vent? Just some copper handles, exactly like the nail. So you run water through there and you have an electrical charge. Now you have literally the vents could separate. You had one that leads outside and one that stays closed. So it looks like they were producing even clean burning hydrogen and oxygen. They were splitting hydrogen and oxygen with electricity. And
well, how did they get the Nile to up to the Great Pyramid itself? I mean, elevation-wise and all that.
How did they get what?
How did they get the Nile to run to the Great Pyramid itself?
Well, that many years ago, that's just where the Nile was, and that's why they have the dates wrong on it. There's no way it's 6,000 years. Just think about if you're building the pyramids. Would you build it 4 miles away or whatever, 5 miles away from the Nile? No, you'd build it right on the Nile.
Right.
And just the way the entire thing's built, water ran through there, and you can see a water line on the pyramid. And some people are saying that was from the flood. Well, if you hit rock, especially concrete, with water for a little while, it doesn't cause a permanent water stain. It's going to be there for 10,000 years. But when you run water through there, now think of the underground chambers, then there was no entrances to these things. And go look at any of the tombs, any tomb in the Valley of the Kings, they're all decorated from wall to wall, the ceiling, everything, and the things covered in their chariots, their boats, they were buried with their weapons, everything. There's no decorations of any type. There's no hieroglyphs. There's never been a body found in any of those pyramids. Later on, and even things like Imhotep was called the first. He's called the architect Pharaoh, the first pyramid building Pharaoh. Well, and he wrote something called the Famine Stela, and that was during 7 years where the Nile dried up and didn't have their floodplain that they got. It usually floods out every year. Well, that was him talking like just a few thousand years ago. And we have records like the Sumerian tablets and other things that talk about the pyramid wars. You can't have a pyramid war without pyramids, and that was far before him. And the pyramids were already there in his time. And you can see that the newer the pyramid is, the worse it looks, the worse shape it's in. But you can also see two totally different types of construction. They're just totally built two different types of ways. And some of the newer ones are almost built out of mud. And when I got the test, when I looked at the first chemical analysis of it, it said that it was 6 parts lime sand, and the sand cannot stick back together. But when you put sodium carbonate with it, which is from dried up lake beds or river beds, and when you have the Nile meandering, and also we know that that used to be a very lush area. It was not always arid. So since the country dried up, and that means sodium carbonate would be everywhere. That's that white stuff you see in riverbeds and lake beds and things. And then I realized 40% of that 300-foot pyramid, 140 feet of it is water and sodium carbonate, and that's even one of the active ingredients you need to be able to create the electricity and to speed up the effect of breaking it into hydrogen and oxygen. But just find the salt on the ceiling of the King's Chamber. That's the only sense it made. I thought about that experiment I did at the science fair all those years ago, and I realized they're all built on top of quartz deposits, and it had water running through it. And then when you look at the pyramids in Mexico, they're all built on top of quartz deposits and sitting on or contain quartz, and they're sitting on top of a cenote or on top of water. And even their ancient religion was the river that runs under the mountain, and that's kind of the story that history tries to tell us why they were building the pyramids. They were trying to put a mountain over a river, and they were going into the underworld. They were doing construction, period. And people build cities and civilizations around utilities.
Right.
They build it around water, electricity, and the things that you need.
But where's the connection? Where's
irrigation, everything.
So, but where's the connection with I mean, because the Great Pyramid, okay, the power plant, the water, across the globe though, maybe same time, same period, maybe earlier even.
Yeah.
There'll be a pyramid there too. I mean, we could talk about South America, where a lot of the pyramids were found down there too. I mean, same thing or a little bit different. And are they connected?
If you haven't seen it, go watch Carmen Bolter's The Pyramid Code. She was one of the speakers at the Advanced Archaeology Symposium too, and she shows the connection between the two and the ones in Indonesia. And everything we find shows us that it was this global civilization. But just like we're talking on a phone right now, having a radio show right now, and drinking a Coca-Cola or something. Well, right now, someone in Egypt is drinking a Coca-Cola and they're doing a radio show on their telephone or on their computer right now. They had the same technology worldwide, and it's just our nature. We're not going to look at water or space and not try to go there. That's just our nature. And then, as things have gotten better, carbon-14 is just completely worthless because you have to have a consistent amount of radiation. You have to know that there was a consistent amount of radiation coming from the sun, so it was always burning at the same brightness, and the atmosphere was the same, and that's just totally gone. Now we're starting to see that we are looking at different time periods, and like the Indonesian pyramids, just absolutely perfect. They look like they were built yesterday, and there's so many of them now. And I didn't start learning that till this year. I didn't know anything about the Indonesian pyramids. I met Danny Irwanto, another one of the speakers, and go check out AtlantisJavaSeed.com. That's where he thinks Atlantis was there. He's mapped out. Before it was like all these thousands of islands, it was the Sundaland Peninsula, and that's where Gunung Padang is. And go look at Candi Kethik Pyramid and Candi Suka. They look Aztec and Mayan, so you can see the exact even building style. And I mean, I'm talking so exact that, I mean, there's no way I would have thought that was in Indonesia. The first time I saw it, it blew my mind. I was like, this looks exactly like what I was standing on in Mexico 10 years ago. And you start seeing
Hmm.
the same angles in the pyramid. I mean, to the exact degree, like a 51.5151. But they put scientific data in there for us to find, or that was just what you needed to make it as efficient as it possibly could be. And so that would mean it was a shared technology between civilizations, or like you've got Americans all over the world. It was, I think it was the same back then. We can't assume that, like, history tries to always assume that no two civilizations knew each other unless they were at war. They did things as hard as they possibly could, and everything we're finding now just shows us that all of that is just absolutely completely wrong. And I don't want it to be any certain thing. It's just what we're finding. And like another guy that's in our group, in just an awesome book. I've got it sitting right here by my leg, The Nine Waves of Creation by Carl Johan Kaleman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just go to CALLEMAN, Kaleman.com. And it is just, every page is just like a little aha moment. It's like, oh my God. I mean, it shows where the minds, where these complex designs they had. Then when you do the mathematics of it, you realize that they were talking about technology and telling about. I mean, they had advanced knowledge of astronomy and things like that. For one to count down, now just think about that. They make their calendar thousands of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that on December 21st, 2012, at this exact time, is exactly the moment that our solar system and the Earth, that our entire solar system, but the Earth goes from below the galactic plane of the Milky Way to above, because the arm, what the Milky Way looks like. It has arms.
Right.
Well, those arms twist. They twist as it spins. And so you have this rising and falling to where we're above the galactic plane or below it. They said thousands of years ago that wasn't the end of the world coming on 2012. They knew that was the day we went from below the plane to above, and they had it right to the exact day. And that is like astronomical. There's no way that they could accidentally do that. And it's just the biggest event possible, and for you to look and go, they knew thousands of years ago that today, I remember thinking that day that we were going to rise above the galactic plane of the Milky Way. So they had full knowledge of the rotation of the arms of the solar system. And then we find out Shiboba was the dark lines in between the arms. And you start finding it's scientific data, and it makes sense that way. And it's just so much information, and they were tracking. You can go look. I forgot what the book's called. The Popol Vuh. And you go look, and it has a picture of a guy, and it has the lines and the dots, and you'll see Mars in the background. They have the position of Mars on all their stuff, and so they're keeping track of where the planets were. Some of the planets they can't see, just
right.
like you see in Samaria in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
You see where they had the planets right above his head, all the way out to like Neptune and Pluto. It has 9 planets, and it even shows the rings of Saturn, and it shows a ring around Neptune. And we didn't even know there was a ring around Neptune until I think the late 80s, early 90s.
So they had to have telescopes back then, or something optically that they could,
yeah.
see our solar
I went to
system.
the Tomb of the Astronaut, and it's like on the cover of the vault. I mean, everybody's seen it on Ancient Aliens. There's a picture of him in a little rocket ship. But you hear about that even in other languages, like in Hebrew, like in another. You wouldn't think that those two know each other or anything, but the word Shem, it literally means rocket ship. That's literally what it means, And so we've had previous times of high technology, but now I'm starting to see, like whenever I did I saw the Point Doom images, when uh, I was doing Lighting the Void in Joe Rupe, and they asked me about Point Doom, like, Jimmy Church was trying to get a view inside Point Doom, and they talked about it for forever, and then nothing ever came about it. And I had to ask him. I was like, "Well, I wasn't listening right then. I was listening to Jimmy Church a lot, but whatever happened." I had to ask them, "Whatever happened?" And they said nothing. And 5 minutes later, I came back with an image of the inside of it, and it shows rows of pillars and very symmetrical, and it's absolutely architecture. And even the Paleocene was, that's 12,000 years ago. The water level is 400 feet lower. Well, this is 2,000 feet down. So that would have to be probably during the Ice Age before then, whenever there's even more water not in the ocean. And when that was, because you can see it's clearly that was the old coastline at some time. And that's where the continental shelf is. But you just keep finding out scientific facts and then looking back and seeing them talking about it whenever we didn't realize what they were saying before. And just like the ring around Neptune, and there's multiple civilizations that had a ring around the planet, and even cave drawings. We don't know. I don't go drawing on cave walls. It could have been kids drawing that, for all we know. In some cases, it probably was. And
well, what a coincidence that would have been then, huh?
We just have to put the same assumptions on them as we put on ourselves. But they
I think
make sure that we stay the peak of intelligence ever.
Well, I think there's, I mean, it would be a big coincidence that could just so happen to put a ring around Neptune, but I'd say, there has to be more to how we knew all of this about astronomy back in the day, before telescopes and before all that, the technology. If there was not any technology, there could be.
There's only two ways to know.
Okay.
Someone had to give them all of that information.
That's where I was going to go.
It had to come from someone who had either been there and seen it, or someone who also had telescopes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
I was going to say also, what is your thought on possibly there being some alien interaction with the human race back then, or vice versa?
On every single continent, in every culture, you hear it, and you find those stories everywhere. From I'm a Four Winds Nation Cherokee, and everywhere from the Cherokee to the Iraq to the Egyptians, to everywhere, they all tell the same exact story. And then you hear that these over here are dealing with this type of race, and then you say, wait a minute, they might have all been talking about this race over here that was in the Sumerian tablets that gave them technology. But that is a repeating theme over and over and over again. And then you realize that both these stories are being told at approximately the same time. And we have things, you look at the Bible and you start seeing the story of Noah, the story of Adam and Eve. All these stories are in the Epic of Gilgamesh in the Sumerian tablets. And I wish we still had the Library of Alexandria. We probably wouldn't be having this conversation, because we'd probably be much more advanced. There's no telling what we'd be by now with thousands of years of having that knowledge. Because if we have the physics knowledge that we have just from the Book of the Dead and from the Emerald Tablets, who knows what we'd find in the other 43 books that were destroyed just of Thoth. And we don't know what other books were even there. We just know at least 43 or so, I believe, of his were destroyed. But that was supposed to be the entire human race's knowledge, the Atlantean civilizations. But now we're starting to see that age when Atlantis was supposed to be around. Well, now that would be the approximate time when Point Doom was above water, and that would be the approximate time in multiple civilizations, where, and they even called him Thoth the Atlantean. That's why I think the first Egyptian writings, what do they say? They talk about the golden age of civilization, the 25,000-year-old civilization before them, and we basically have like 150-year-old, 200-year-old technology. Imagine a civilization with 1,000-year-old technology. What would it even look like? And then 5,000 or 10,000. Well, we're already getting more back to nature and going green and all these things. So the higher technology gets, it would start looking more like that, and you do see that they kind of all lived in common ways back then. But I think our advances in our understanding of piezoelectricity and of things like that, and I don't hear a lot of people talk about it, like what the sun even is, and the stories that we heard here in the Egyptian.
Well, what do you think there?
Egyptian carvings and all that. It's much more complex than just a ball of fire or just a nuclear reaction that's turning hydrogen into helium. I've taken pictures where it has, you've seen them, where it has these complex structures on the surface, and where there's a flare, you'll see a sunspot. But I see things dive in, and I've seen sunspots form, and I'm literally sitting there talking to a few of my friends. We're watching the same thing, and you see things fly out of it, but then it can't be ejection material, because ejection material doesn't stop in orbit once it comes out and wait for a few more things to catch up with it and then disappear. And then you have this Earth-size, I think it's a creature, I think it's a being, it acted more like a fish.
Okay.
But as the sun turns in orbit, or as it turns, you have something looks like kind of like a jellyfish attached with one tentacle, and sometimes it's split to three. It looked like a little tornado thing, but it looked like it was sucking energy out of the sun. And while we're watching it, people are like, oh, well, it's like a tornado. You can tell it's a vortex right here, and it's causing a bubble up here. Well, that theory works until the thing kicks really hard and swims away, and it kicked so hard, it kicked up a 1,500-mile tall wake on the surface of the sun. And,
So it would have had. So it would have had to been a creature that was.
A bubble would float away. This thing shot off.
So a creature would have been actually made of the same material as the sun, then, right?
Well, space is cold, and now I'm starting to think, if you don't have atmosphere, you can't have sound travel through it. Maybe you can't have heat travel through it either, because when you get out into space, it's ice cold. But if these are silica-based life forms, and that's what I've said before, is SETI looking for water out there? That's like us standing, me and you are extremophiles, and we're sitting on the edge of a volcanic vent. Extremophiles are life that grows, and the only place they can live is on the edge of a volcanic vent at the bottom of the ocean. But us, making that assumption and looking out into space only for water, that is exactly like you and I sitting there on the side of a volcanic vent, and we're looking with a telescope across the ocean to find a sea full of life, trying to find another volcanic vent, because that's the only place that life can be, possibly.
Oh,
because
right.
You have to have 400 degree.
Yeah. No, I agree that I agree that life can evolve on just about any planet, even the sun. Possibly there could be, even
totally.
though anything's possible. But basically the Egyptians thought that, there's basically portals in this in the star systems. In the
Literally,
stars themselves. And but what site do you go and watch this on?
I go on helioviewer.org.
Helioviewer.org.
Helio, like the sun, HELIO.
Okay.
Viewer.org, and there's a little thing at the top where you can just if you see something interesting, you can click. It snaps a photo for you, and it's perfectly. It's in the super super high def, so you can zoom in really close on things and still be massively high def. And you can also take movie clips, and you look on the side, and it shows you the most recent movie clips and events. And there's a little time clock at the top, a little slide bar, so you can slide it back in time. As long as Soho's been there, you can slide it back and see any event.
Yeah, you're gonna have to send me a link to that site, or if I forget.
It's
But
awesome.
yeah, I gotta check that
I
out.
pop it up in the stream every now and then, and it.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, it's there's amazing tools like that, and people don't realize like the solar weather thing. You can check what the weather's going to be on the sun today, But whenever I was working at Komatsu as a metallurgist, I'm sitting there and I've got a piece. Have you seen that picture of me on Facebook where I look like Darth Vader, but and it's a gold shield over. It's a gold shield over my face,
Yeah.
and I've got on these heat gloves. Well, I'm standing next to an oven or a furnace that I built, and it's called coking up the furnace. And so this is where I show that they did have the technology to do metallurgy back then, because that was the big argument. They weren't advanced to have metallurgy. But when you look at the architecture that it's built out of, it's way more advanced than the technology it takes to have metallurgy. Because if you have a fire that's 600 degrees, well, for one, anybody who sees lava cool will instantly know that you could reheat it, and you would know that rock is going to be, it's possible to make it into a liquid form. But when you have complex tools and jewelry and all these things, that's how you separate the metals out of the rock. So you find these ancient tools and these ancient, just elaborate, awesome gold things that are just super complex. They were doing metallurgy, and the only thing that it takes for me to make the furnace go from 600 degrees to 4,000 in just a few seconds is other rocks, because they'd melt down a bunch of steel and stuff, put it in there. And whenever I wanted to make the furnace jump, and I'm trying to make this melt down into the alloy that I made within a few decimal points of the stuff I made before, like making stuff for drilling and things like that, super hard alloys. But I'm throwing other rocks in, moly oxide, and throwing more carbon in, throwing in, things like limestone to act as a fuel, because anything else burns off too fast. You even throw aluminum in, it disappears almost instantly. But I sat there looking into it and thinking about, the sun, and a piece of literally clear as water metal flies out, hits me right in the face, and it just drips off of the mask, like, right after you wax a car, it just dribbles off. But if that were to hit anywhere else on me, it would have just passed straight through me, like I wasn't standing there. And I realized I'm standing here this close, and if any other human was standing this close without this very thin Elvex mask on, and it's just millimeter thin, if anybody else was standing here, they would be dead. And I'm standing here for 8 hours a day, or however many hours. I'd take a sample and run back to the lab and test it and see what I need to add, and then come back and add those things, and take another sample after it burns and see what I need to add. And so basically I'm like the cook, and I got that job literally just because I wanted the training. I went down there. It was just by chance. I had gone to school of computer science, and there's millions of chemists in the world, but there's literally like 150 chemical metallurgists and heavy metal chemists. So they thought I was playing when I said I'd take the job, but I was like, I went down there for the AOD furnace operator, which you sit there in a computer and your job is to push a button, tilt the thing over, and stand it up. It's an AOD furnace. That means oxygen or argon, oxygen decarburized. And so my job was to sit there and monitor it and do what everybody tells me to tip it over whenever they need to take a sample. But they had already given that job to somebody else before I had driven all the way down there in Mansfield, Louisiana. Wow. And so they said the only thing we had, they said, I'm sorry you drove down here for nothing. The only job we have is for a chemical metallurgist. And I said, I'll take it. And they're like, oh, seriously, like,
Yeah.
you think you can do it? And they said, well, I see on here where you have taken chemistry before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I can do it. But then I found out, yeah, that was the most challenging job. That was like doing MMA or playing football at the
Mm-hmm.
same time you're writing an algorithm in your head, or,
Yeah.
doing advanced algebra or something. And it was really challenging, but I picked it up pretty fast. After just a week or so, the whole entire factory was running off of my algorithms. So it was very
Yeah.
valuable to me. I'm very glad I got to do it. It's one of the hardest things I'd ever done, especially for that amount of money. But
Wow. Yeah, I hear you.
it's definitely worth gold.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, let's jump in. Wait, let's talk little bit about Planet X. Even though it's been a debate over and over again, I just like to get your view on it.
You see it. It's the same thing we've been talking about. You see it written down in archaeology, and them telling you it's what's going to happen in the future, just like the Mayans telling us that we're going to rise above the galactic plane in 2012 on exactly December 21st. Well,
never happened, but
Sumerians are talking about it. But back in 2005, and you can go to jeffboydjr.blogspot.com, and it'll show you back in 2007, I was just looking around the sky on Google Sky and Google Earth, and found this cutout section of sky. It was like you're looking at this multicolored sky, nebulas and everything else, and this one area of sky is just black. They had just cut it completely out. And so
You believe that was Planet X that they were blocking out?
I had to know right then. So I went to the Caltech IR telescope, and then I went down to a Chilean telescope, and I started going to different ones and getting views of exactly that coordinate. And I see this thing that it looks like a big Venus or something. It's red. You couldn't see the wings on it then. But over time now, and there's pictures of this on the Research Society wall too. Now it's over 20,000 times larger when I look at it than it was when I first looked at it in 2006 or 2007 when they cut out that square. But when they cut out that square, I started posting things, but it's called a SONA system, SONNE, a SONA system, and it's usually when most solar systems are binary. You have two suns, two stars, and so you have solar systems that are in orbit, kind of like you have the Jovian system. You have things in orbit around Jupiter, which is very close to being a star. All it needs is a little more mass, and it would be a star. It would turn into a star because of the massive gravity. So planets only get up to a certain size before they turn it to light up into a star.
Well, how large is this? How come nobody else is coming out with these pictures, and it's not all over everywhere, or is it? Planet X.
I don't know. It was really easy for me to get the information, and I encourage people to look at the pictures I have on there, but go onto it, and the coordinates are on my page for that cutout section of sky, and you can go drop those coordinates. Actually, in Google Earth right now, in 2012, they finally gave up because even on the page, and if you're looking at it again, it's jeffboydjr.blogspot.com, and go down it, you'll see it says Google cutout section of sky. What are they blacking out? And it's a complete solar system. It's a star. It's a brown dwarf star with planets around it, and some of those planets have moons. And then you see all this other material. And see, back then they called it the Apollo group, so they can name it something else, which that's not too comforting, because the Apollo group, that means the destroyer. And so it's dragging all these comets and all these asteroids and things that it's caught on its way on this long elliptical orbit or whatever. But
you said wing too, though. What is this?
The wings are because
what is it made of?
It's made out of it's almost totally made out of iron. We have a hydrogen and helium reaction in our sun, and This one is either had dimmed out over time, or that's just how it's always been. It was just made of a different material. I told you, like planets, as they build up and get bigger, eventually the gravity gets so big that it lights up. Fission happens and it turns into a star. And this is just, it's literally rust. It's iron oxide being blown out into space. And so it's just like a comet. It's got two tails. And I have diagrams and all that stuff. I'll send it to you. And
it's not inhabited by the Nephilim?
Go look. Now go look. The Egyptians, the Sumerians, all of them, their symbol is the winged disc. Elohim, they always talk about it. That their symbol was the winged disc all the way up to the Nazis. Everybody knew this back then. And you see that same symbol, the winged disc, over and over again through all these civilizations in that area. And in all the Anunnaki stuff, you see when they're talking about Nibiru and all this and teaching the Sumerians back then, they have the winged planet, and they were telling them what it was. And they even said that it was a solar system. It had its own planets, and it had, so they have a more dim star, but the planets are closer in to that star.
So it's inhabited?
But this is something you don't want coming into your solar system, though. So hopefully it's coming our direction, but it's not actually in orbit with our star. Hopefully the ancients were wrong, or that it's happened so many times that the planets are in different order than they used to be, which we have evidence now of things like Mars' atmosphere being blown away and different things like that. But the center star, the winged planet, I mean, that's a brown dwarf star, but it's still like 10 times the size of the Earth, or what's even bigger than that. I mean, it's just massive. But it has planets around it, and
it's inhabited, though?
I don't know why. It's something, I guess they just don't want to freak people out or have to lie even more. They just kind of just don't bring it up ever, or every time you mention Planet X, they keep pointing out the Kuiper Belt and pointing out to Pluto and go, like the newest news is, we just found a planet, call it Planet 9, or now they're trying to call it Planet X or Planet 9. And it is, it's something like, something crazy, like 5 times as far out as Pluto or something like that. It's just so far out there, but they found another planet that's still in our sun's gravitational pull. The Kuiper Belt is just a belt of just asteroids and little dwarf planets and dwarf moons, and that is just beyond Pluto. And so we could have 4 or 5 more planets past the Kuiper Belt that we haven't seen before, but space is just so vast, you have to catch it at the right time, because not everybody has this picture that all the planets are lined up on this flat disk, but some are tilted certain ways, and like Neptune doesn't rotate like on our axis, like standing straight up and down.
Right.
It like rolls. It almost rolls around the solar system. It has an axis where it's on its side. So its days, and I guess its north and south would be where the sun rises and goes down. But or you'd have the sun always on one side of the planet, like at the South Pole. It'd be like on the southern hemisphere, because the planet is totally tilted on its side. But
is Planet X inhabited? Do you believe?
It's absolutely 100% real, no doubt about it.
But is it inhabited? Do you believe that the Nephilim will come?
That's something there's no way to know, because we're not, at least we're not communicating with them, or we're not being told any communications, which you can go, and all the stuff I do is just fact. I don't care what it is, but I got the Crest CIA database that they declassified in between the election. Is very slick, and the inauguration, they let it out when nobody's paying attention, because they got everybody PO'd about the election, and they declassified the Crest CIA database. And that database is everything we have, everything that the CIA has on UFOs, on all the reports worldwide from the Belgian wave, all of them. But we even have this, and this is an independent post on the wall. I'll put this up there, and this is also in the file section, and it's NSA document 41472. So the CIA has an NSA document, and it says Dr. Campaign's key to ET messages, and there were 29 messages that were received. I think the first one repeated over and over again, so they could get a chance to write something down, whoever sent it out, and then 28 messages after that. But that was just one signal that we received. Now that information's there for us to just read, and we were talking about that just earlier today, and people are scared to go even look in the database. I mean, you can just click on at the Research Society and click on the CREST database and read all the documents. Like TR-277 is it's the history of the moon for the last, all the anomalies reported by anyone in the world over the last 500 years. So we're talking about lots of information on here.
Over the last 500 years.
500 years.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
And it's but I mean, we know with this key cipher, we know for a fact that they've got ET messages, but we don't know what they say unless you decipher it yourself. And but now I'm looking for the file that went with that. They're not going to give you a nice index all the time to go through something they declassify. But
we'll talk about that again. We'll talk about
that. May be top secret though, what the message actually says.
We'll jump back to the CIA documents and stuff like that again real quick. But again, let me just confirm. You don't believe that there's any way really of knowing if Planet X is inhabited with the Nephilim or anything that like Sitchin has talked about or anything like that in the past, right?
Well, I mean, if you go by what he wrote and what the records actually say, the data out in space backs it up. But we don't have any way. I don't have any way to communicate with them, and I haven't found any record of anybody communicating with them. But that's
don't the records
been top secret?
But don't the records say that it is inhabited by the Nephilim? So I mean, if we're going to take their word for it that Planet X is out there, shouldn't we also just take their word that it is inhabited by the Nephilim and they will be returning?
Yeah. But also we don't know what could have happened to them over the last, if it is on a 3,600-year elliptical orbit, there's no way to tell what, they could have had some extinction level event during that time period. But history says that they've come around to the Earth a few times, and I think Sitchin stuff says that they landed somewhere in like Basra, 100,000 years ago, or somewhere back then. But like the thing I found at Point Doom, it backs up a lot of those things, and things like Baalbek, the Trilithon Stone, a lot of archaeology backs up some of those things, because he said that's supposedly where their little space station was, or their launch pad or whatever, and it just so happens to be, they called it the biggest megalith on the planet because they didn't know about Shoria Gornaya, Kazakhstan, which is a whole mountain built out of stones that are 3,000 and 4,000 tons. And but if you look at the archaeology, different places, it does back up the story, and some people just have a problem with the translation of it and things like that. Like I had a friend who was studying it, Dr. Rita Louise, and she went in and read all of the things that Sitchin was reading, and she couldn't find the word gold in there anywhere. Like in all of the tablets, couldn't find the word gold. But see, these are the researchers that are doing the thing that I am. They're going back to the original thing and finding out for themselves, and not taking someone else's word for it. And that's what I've been learning how to do this year too, is learning how to translate different languages and finding out what the data actually says, and what different symbols stand for, and what their numbers look like and how advanced their mathematics was and things like that. But some people don't agree with what his translation said, but I think he was trying to be. I don't think he really had any objective of, he's already got this amazing story of the Anunnaki. So, I think he was trying to get as close as he could and just thought that this word right here must mean gold or whatever. But I can't remember what the exact word that they used that was repeated. But the word gold, she couldn't, I think she either found it one time or didn't find it anywhere in the tablets, but the other stories of creating workers, and I mean, there's cuneiform tablets that have pictures of them giving us a plow and things like that. So that's again where you see ancient man recording the history of our interactions with other beings, or and we have like Klaus Nana. That's when I started studying him. He's found giant bones from all over the world. Like places like Ecuador have massive amounts of them have been found there, and that backs up the other stories. I mean, even David and Goliath, these things. There are giant bones found everywhere, and you have different races. You have this one race that's like 9 to 10 feet tall, depending on if it was a male or female. But then the ones Klaus Donna was studying he calls it the 7-meter race, and that's like 21, 22 feet tall. But they've found skeletons over and over again. You see on the internet where they keep calling it a hoax, keep calling it, the giant skeleton found, and somebody else comes out and says that it's a hoax.
Yeah.
But that's just people skewing information, because like the Smithsonian,
it's hard to know the truth.
Giant bones.
Yeah, it's hard to know which is faked or real. I mean, it really is when it comes to video or photography or pics nowadays. I mean, it really is.
Well, him, he has like a heel bone that was sent to him, and this heel bone is like the size of my entire foot, and he did the testing on it, and see, he's one of these guys that he's not like Jaime Maussan or the guy at University of Mexico or whatever. He's from Vienna, Austria. He's like one of the most respected archaeologists in the entire world, and
right.
That's and when he says it, you can pretty much believe it, because that's he's one of the guys I looked up to, and I was like, whatever the truth is, I don't care what it is, I just want to find out what it is, No,
I think there's been enough researchers and
anymore.
Yeah, I believe there's been enough research and evidence found that there has been a race of giants in the past. I really do believe that. But
everywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
I called the Age of Taurus, and this is another time where I was sitting there and I realized something, and then I read something. Actually, saw I was watching one of Klaus Donna's lectures on YouTube, and he talked about the bull and showed in Italy and in Ecuador, and I have a thing called the Age of Taurus, the high-tech civilization before us, and it anytime you see the symbol of the bull, which that was when it was the dominant constellation in the sky, and anytime you find the symbol of a bull somewhere carved into you find giant bones there. Every time they found giant bones, they would find a bull's head nearby. It was like that's how they marked their graves or something, or that's how humans would mark where they buried giants, or somebody, whoever made the carvings, and maybe that was the symbol for their civilization. So when they buried one of their own, they put that there, and there are structures all over the earth that don't make any sense unless you're really massive. They're still just, the jury's still out on Yonaguni in Japan, this massive megalithic structure underground that looks like it has stairs, but you would have to be 21 feet tall for them to be, like stairs to us.
And they haven't gone and tried to get to it, or?
Yeah, well, people have looked at it. It's amazing. You can go look at every single square inch of the place. But people like Robert Schoch, he's the one who's done a lot of the work in Göbekli Tepe. he thinks that it's a natural formation, but other people say there's no way it is just because of the complexity of it. But
Wow.
that's one of the locations I still haven't got a chance to go look for myself. But that's what I'm about to do now. I'm like, I've been to Mexico and down through there in Belize and looked at these things, and now I'm being invited to, like, Dr. Sam Osmanagic. He's the one in Bosnia, the Bosnian pyramids. He wants me to come over there because I think Bruce Cunningham, he's the Advanced Archaeology Group and Ancient Mysteries International magazine, and he sent him some things that I wrote, I think, or the radio show I did with him. And now Dr. Sam wants me to come over to Bosnia and check out the Bosnian pyramid for myself. And, with the piezoelectric power plant thing, now multiple people are starting to come to that same conclusion themselves. And that's pretty reassuring. But now it's time for me to go out there and actually see these places. So that's what I'm setting up now, is the ability to go put my hands on it and not on a book or on data that's coming in from other people, and go see these places for myself. And that's what they want me to go do, is on their research team. They want me to be their materials expert, and because I can look at something and tell you whether it's geopolymer, if it's concrete, or if it's limestone. And but there's a lot of places that are just odd that don't fit in with this, like, North American history of like 300 or 400 years. Places like Mesa Verde, Colorado, like Cliff Palace. It's this place, I don't know if you've seen it before, but it's this, like, it looks like townhouses cut out of the side of a straight rock cliff,
Very cool.
But
yeah.
they tell you that, but what they don't tell you is right there in that area. I've been rock climbing in there. There's over 600 of those things in that area right there. That's called a city,
Right. Yeah.
Because that one Cliff Palace is enough for about 100 people to live in. Well, you have 600 of those right there in that little area, and it's just an amazing, massive complex, and that doesn't make sense when if you say it was Indians that did this. It obviously, if it
there's more involved,
knowledge of construction and things like that
to carve that into the stone. And Bruce Cunningham's going to be on Leonard O'Neill's show tomorrow, Orion Rising, at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So
cool.
Ancient
my buddy. I talk to him all the time, every day.
Ancient Aliens Worldwide, or Orion Rising page.
Every day he's near a phone. He lives over in the Philippines now. He finally totally moved over there. But I'll be over there soon to see him. He lives in Cebu.
Cool.
And I'm going to go hang out there for a while.
That'll be fun. That's awesome, man. Hey, and what do you think about all these giants all over the globe that have been found? I mean, one single race, multiple different species. I mean, what do you think?
I think it... you keep seeing, and that's what makes me a little nervous about the whole Planet X thing is you see multiple species or multiple times in human race, and it might have been a difference in gravity on the planet. It might have been a difference in atmosphere, why they grew so big. But see, they came before us, so we are the change from that. But now we're starting to see that we are more and more disconnected from Neanderthals and from monkeys, and we're starting to see that there's a total disconnection there. That missing link is a huge missing gap. Like, it's not even close. There's so many steps between that and us. And like, there's a guy in Germany who was talking about cloning a Neanderthal, and had made a comment about if he had a surrogate or something. But then he later said that he didn't say that to Der Spiegel magazine or something. And but that wouldn't even be possible. So they're not that close genetically to us. So they probably existed solo on their own, separate from human. Or we know that they live contemporary at the same time as humans.
Yeah.
So that they were on the planet at the same time as us. We know that for a fact, and in different areas. And then you have, like, in New Guinea, you have these, like they call it the Hobbit, like,
Right.
not just giants, you have the small beings too.
Mm-hmm.
So you see multiple different types of beings all over the planet,
And
and
you think they came
some of
from
these
somewhere
people,
else then?
uh, that's one thing that we don't know yet.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think with the lidar and the muon imaging,
Mm-hmm.
now we're starting to be able to see into the earth, deep into the earth. And I think that right now, people are going to put their cities where, like we were talking about before, in the same place. It's logical. So I think a lot of our cities are sitting right over the top of older cities and older cities. I think there's layers of civilization, and that's what the Mayan had said. And they even had it broke down that their clock that counted down to 2012. They talk about the first era as us coming out of the jungle, out of nature, into civilization. And then the second age going back from civilization into nature, and then coming back out, and it goes back and forth. But the fifth was the end of it. So we didn't start the sixth era. We started an entire new. It's called that's what the nine waves of creation is about. And so it shows the rise and fall of man, and that's what it's talking about. And archaeology backs that up too. You
Yeah.
see different places on the planet where at different technological levels, you know, and then you see times where the entire planet appeared to have the same architectural style, the same building abilities, and all of these things. They're the same beliefs, the same knowledge of the stars. So
Yeah.
there were times where it
Interesting.
appears there's a global civilization, and then there's also times where it looks like there's a separation, or man coming back. So you have isolated places where you find man, like, in Northern Europe, and then uh, not much else around during that time. I think that our history is so much more complex. They want to say we came from a single-celled organism, and it's step, step, step. It was linear straight to here, but the truth is, it's not like, starting from one point and branching out. It's more like the roots of a tree. There's all these thousands of different variables that have led us to this point now. And what we're finding in the ground is backing that up. It's telling us that we do not know what we were talking about at all. Like, I mean, the things that we're told in archaeology, if you go to school in archaeology, they're like, and read Michael Cremo, Forbidden Archaeology, because you're like, if you're an establishment person, you're like forbidden to talk about it. And, when you have in this entire system, and, that even that's why they call it the Babylon magic money system, and that's what the Anunnaki supposedly came up with back then. And it's still a system of control. And when you have an entire world of professors who are allowed to write their own books, use them as textbooks, well, now you're charging $200 a textbook, and you've got 150 people in every class, and you got 5 classes. Well, you got like 100,000 reasons a semester to not ever make any new discoveries. And then tenure, they don't want to go outside and say anything different, even if they don't agree with it. That's why I went and majored in education, but I never did my student teaching, because I didn't want to teach something that I knew was totally false.
Right.
And but now I knew why I took it. I just walk in faith. But now that's what I'm doing every day, is I'm learning and teaching, because that's what I wanted to learn how to do, and that helped me teach martial arts and do all kind of other things and learn more. So, and that's what I've
Right.
been doing.
Mm-hmm.
When you major in education, it teaches you how the human brain works, and the different ways you can learn, and how advertising works, and the 5 different types of advertising, the repetitive type, and the gag type thing that makes you remember certain things. Well, you learn all these different ways to learn things. But once I started studying like resonance and things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
started like meditating and started learning things like that, just to see the, you know, anthropomorphic, or just the effects to the body and the and to your mind and everything else. I was even like getting isochronic tones and binaural beats, and like you can get on that all over Facebook, get like a 400. You can type in 432 hertz delta wave. Well, I would put that on, and I mean the delta waves would knock me straight to sleep, and that would
Huh.
put you in a delta sleep. And the theta waves is the state that your brain starts giving off theta waves when you get into in meditation, when you get in a calm state.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting there concentrating on a test, you're giving off alpha waves. But one day, I swear, it just felt like I was somebody just plugged me into the wall, and
Wow.
it was like
Static
short
charge.
circuit. It's like I couldn't, I have to turn my brain off at night, turn my phone off, and stop thinking about things. That's why I still have to listen to the radio, like we were talking about before the show.
Right.
I have to listen to the radio every night to go to sleep. And I like the only way to calm me, I think I use that so long is like a getaway.
I do the same
But
thing every night, man.
we're making leaps and bounds now.
Yeah, every night I gotta I have to listen to something, just to relax me and to get me to sleep. So yeah, I do the same thing. How about we talk
Mm-hmm.
about, we got about 15 minutes left in the show. Boy, I mean, it went by
Wow.
fast. Yeah. How about the 24 black boxes that have been found across the
Yeah, and
globe
I
there?
didn't realize Ildi Budai is my photographer. She's like went over to Egypt, and I got these pictures back, and I was trying to write my book and trying to get this all organized. So
Mm-hmm.
when I don't know if when you search Independent Research Society, you'll see a little thing that says Independent Research Society book, and there's only 2 members. Well, I did that because I've got all these packages of pictures she sends me wherever she goes,
Mm-hmm.
and then if this is in South America and this is in Egypt. Well, the ones that she sent from Egypt, I was sitting there reading whenever I was searching through the New York Post stuff, like we were talking about before the show about the Peruvian mummy and what they were saying about the head binding and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Then I realized pictures that I have, she had sent me pictures of the entire inside of this complex of these 24 black vaults, and then these long hallways. But there's all these anomalies. Like one of the just long, perfect arched hallways, and it's just like it looks like you're driving through like the Kennedy Tunnel or a Lincoln Tunnel or something. But I mean, it's just perfect. But then in one of the tunnels, there's just a big block. It looks like one square block from the pyramid. They just shoved in the middle of the tunnel, or they just carved it out and left this big block in the middle of it. And that's when I'm start thinking back to the power plant thing,
Mm-hmm.
because if you've ever been to a power plant, or like especially like a hydroelectric power plant, they have multiple places to catch things in the water, so things like trees and logs don't get inside there, and they'll have a big block. If you go to any dam, you'll see like bunch of blocks like before the water goes over, and it catches all massive debris. But then I start thinking along the electric thing. This was found like 12 miles south of Cairo, and there are these vaults that have these super dense, like granite type material. It's really black,
Mm-hmm.
but I only saw one um, area where there was a hieroglyph, and everything else other than that looks different. Just like go look at all the temples, Abydos, Dendera. Go look at all of them. In some of them, you'll see the newer temples have the writing directly on the wall, and the ones like Abydos that are from the age before, they have plates that are over the walls with it. You've seen it, the brown material that looks like plaster with the hieroglyphs, looks like they're stamped into it or carved out of it, but those plates sit on top of the walls. So when you take those plates out of there, the walls are totally plain, just nothing in there. But then the newer ones you see are just wall to wall, the story of the Egyptians or whatever. And so you start finding all these characteristics that make it really stand out at the two different ages. But those vaults, I think, were just, they either had something to do with that. Maybe that was, when the electricity was generated, maybe they were using that fact that the Nile floods every year. Maybe they were using that to store up energy, and that's whenever they were creating electricity. If it didn't flow through there, they knew that flood was coming every year. But we don't know how it was far back. We know that's what it was in recent times, that it flooded like that. But the most ancient cities in Egypt are underwater, because you got to remember 12,000 years ago, with the water level that much lower, there was almost no separation between Europe and Africa.
Right.
You have to picture the Mediterranean Ocean as like Loch Ness, or like a lake in between there. So Italy wouldn't look like a boot, and Greece wouldn't. There would be no, you'd be able to walk from one to the other. And so the oldest cities in Egypt are underwater, and that would be their most lush lands, lowlands down there. And so now that's totally underwater, but now we're starting to bring some of those things up. And I think there's a huge amount. And now think about this: New York, Miami, Washington, D.C., San Diego, Seattle, San Francisco, Portland, that's all over the world. Like 70% of all of our population lives in a coastal city. And if you made the water level rise 400 feet higher right now, everybody would have to move further inland. And now you have 70% of our cities would be underwater, or 70% of our population centers would be underwater. They'd either have to move in, or they're going to be living underwater. And I think over time, 12,000 years of things being underwater, if the only thing left is what's made of stone, and if you've ever seen like an old house that burns down or something, the only thing left is the chimney.
Yep.
And so we don't build out of any one material. And I think that's a fact that everyone leaves out. We have sheetrock, wood,
right, of course,
brick, mortar, epoxy, all these different things. And the only thing left standing is stone. And now you look at those jigsaw-looking walls in South America, and then you realize all of us have seen a brick wall and pushed it over when we were a kid or something. A little brick wall left, and how easy it is. Well, it's just perforated lines. I mean, that's about the weakest that you can make of anything.
Yeah.
And it's like sand holding it together. So those jagged lines keep it, and also makes it pretty earthquake proof too. But what are these thread through the whole planet on all of it?
Yeah. What are the 20? What do you make of the 24 black boxes that were found though? I mean, what do you think they're for? What are they?
I think they were. There hasn't been any bodies found in them, and they're all these. If they didn't have any locking system, which it's just like now, you can keep things. If it's a civilization, you can guard something or lock a door, keep something from people from getting to it. And now, like with LiDAR, we found a 3,000 room labyrinth underground right in front of a pyramid people have been standing on for a long time. And the rooms are still full of all kinds of stuff, wood. And now LiDAR, we can detect different types of material, bone and things like that.
Right.
But it's like 80 acres. It would take forever to figure out how much sand that would be to get out. But I don't know. With the way it is, it looks like it would be really hard, almost impossible to open the things. So storage of, national treasure, just like a treasury, or it had some, if it wasn't in a tomb, then it was some, it had some function. They're not going to build anything with no function. But we don't know though, because with Zahi Hawass there for so many years, he could have come through there and collected everybody out of every one of those boxes, because now we found out about so many things he lied about. He's supposed to be on a clerk's salary, but his kids go to schools that are more expensive than even that is, and he's like rich. So he's been selling artifacts and doing illegal things for a long time.
Wow.
But we got a new guy out there now. We got a new guy in Egypt. And he's pretty much like anybody who wants to come look and see. That's like about the mummy. That Egypt is doing the opposite thing right now. They're like, if you want to come over here and see it, come on over. We'll let you go in pretty much anything now. And with Muon imaging, that's like, if you don't know what that is, say you break your ankle, you go in the emergency room, you lay your leg on top of one of those tiles and they take a picture. Then they remove the tile out from underneath your foot. And that's what they used to do the x-ray. Well, now they take those tiles and go to the deepest level of a pyramid and line the tiles up across the floor. And now leave it overnight. The cosmic rays that rain down from the cosmos, from space, all night long, they come through the pyramid or through the structure all night long and hit those plates at the lowest point on the floor. And then the next day you go collect the tiles, and whenever they go back to read them, it's called a high-speed microscope, and it goes by and it reads which angle the cosmic ray came in and what kind of mark it made on it. So it gives you this 3D high-definition picture of every single square cubic inch of the entire thing. So if there's a void anywhere in the pyramid, now we'll know it.
Wow,
we don't have to guess. We don't have to blow things up or anything like they did in the 20s.
Yeah,
now
cool.
we have a high definition view of the entire thing. And they did a Muon image of the bent pyramid. It's on YouTube. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you see the new story that's out there where they went through the one chamber and there was that long shaft that was about 6 inches by 6 inches, I believe, and at the very end of it was just a 6 inch by 6 inch little like door or whatever with a handle on it. Did you see that story?
I mean, I don't know if that's the. I think that was the place Carmen Bolter was talking about.
Okay.
And I think that was where. I think that's at the location I was telling you about where the labyrinth is. Have you ever seen the labyrinth? You need to go type in Egypt labyrinth. It's and we think that's what what's his name Herodotus in Greece was talking about when he wrote the story of the labyrinth. Mm-hmm. That's where he got the idea when he traveled to Egypt. That was where he got the idea from. But that even the labyrinth it's 2 levels, 1,500 rooms on each level, 2 stories underground. But she was at one location, and the door went that direction, and so they took off through the desert that way, and they ended up at that pyramid. And that's where the labyrinth was found. But I think that's where that door opened up to or went to, because they could see down the shaft. And there's just a lot of amazing finds they're having like that now. And I told you about, look up Shoria Gornaya, Kazakhstan. Uh-huh. And it's an entire, people have been snow skiing on it for years, and then they realized this thing is made out of 3,000 and 4,000 and 5,000 ton stones. And when I see that, the first thing I think is that's where somebody would go to ride out a nuclear war or an extinction level event, like an impact event. Mm-hmm. It's the perfect structure for it, and they went and found, and I was like, damn it, I wanted to go do it myself. And that somebody went over there and they looked at these massive megaliths, and they found where there's a vault in one of the rocks that has a hallway inside of it that leads inside of the mountain. And so we're about to find out what's inside there. And I think that might be where Graham Hancock's Builder Gods might have been riding out extinction level events. Because there is a record of people like Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, Thoth. These people were popping up after extinction level events and kickstarting mankind's knowledge again. And that's who taught the Mayans and the Aztecs all their information, and that's who taught the Egyptians all their stuff. And so you just see these crazy white guys showing up in South America, with long hair, Caucasians with long beards, and when they said when he left, his hair was silver and gray when he left, and he left by sea the same way he came. But you do have this one race that seems to have survived at least one event, and been there to pass along knowledge, astronomical knowledge to the next people, and that's a repeating theme too in all those civilizations.
Wow. Yeah, good stuff, man. Yeah, we're about at the end of the show here, Jeffrey. Let me
Had fun, man. It went quick.
It sure did. 2 hours, man, flew by. For sure. Is your Facebook?
There's just not enough time to talk about it, but I mean, the Research Society. It's not now. We've built the organization, and now it has the things and the different experts on all the stuff. So, but now it's about anybody who wants to learn the truth or learn how to use these tools and learn how to use these satellites, or wants to take a look at this information himself, come join the society. And
Okay,
Dino will tell you, I sit there 24 hours a day
oh my
to
God.
do nothing but show people how to use stuff. And I sit there, and as new data comes through, I'm sitting here posting it in the data stream and on the wall.
It's better than any news channel, really. I mean, you constantly got. I mean, you don't really have to go anywhere else, to tell you the truth. I mean, I'm constantly seeing stuff, and I'm like going, okay, this is stuff to take me all through the day, man. And you do it just about every day.
It makes me feel good. I appreciate that. Because that's what it's supposed to be. As things come in and we find out about them, I share it with everybody, and then you have the different experts that are there that are all over the world. So I have to wait till the next day sometimes because they're not awake yet. Exactly. And by the next day, I see what they think about it, and they have more information to add and share to it. And now that's what it's about. I built a research society, so there's not competing independent researchers, and everybody's keeping their knowledge. Now that everybody's sharing their little piece of the puzzle, we're starting to get a picture together really fast.
Oh, yeah. And somebody's asking, of course, in the chat and stuff, where to go. I mean, you would definitely look on
Facebook.com/groups Independent Research Society, but you can just search. Once you type in IND into the search box on Facebook, it'll take you straight to the Independent Research Society. And I just started a Patreon page today with the show from last night, and that has all the images inside Point Doom with just rows of columns showing this is architecture. This is architecture, period. And
is the Patreon under your name?
I'm going to start adding material to it. That helps like artists and creators like me that are trying to, and you like podcasters and people who are searching to make it and go another day.
Is the Patreon under Jeffrey Boyd, or is it Independent Research Society?
Truth Mafia.
Truth Mafia. Okay. So go
it.
Okay, and I think the link's in your Independent Research Society too, but you could also look on Patreon for Truth Mafia. So there you go. I am going to let you go, Jeffrey, man. We've reached 2 hours here, so I am going to let you go, and I appreciate it so much. So much information you gave me today. So I will keep up. Send me the link to that the website, heliowhatever.com.
HelioViewer.
Okay, there you go.
HelioViewer.org.
I'll check it right now when I get off here.
I had fun, brother.
Okay, thanks a lot, man, and I will catch you next time, okay?
All right, peace out.
Okay, take care. Okay, there you go, man. There's Jeffrey Boyd Jr. Go check out his Facebook group, Independent Research Society. Just type it in, and you will get the Facebook group. So there you go. And everybody else, check out Paranormal Into the Night on all platforms, and we got some more great guests coming up in the future here, and we will be doing I'll announce it a little bit late, maybe next show or something, but Star will be Zeta Talk every third week of the month, something like that, and we'll figure it out, but I am tired as hell. I am going to leave you guys with a little bit of tunes on the way out, and peace, love, and a paranormal.